Hello humans! I've called off once again, so I am making a new In Bed with hEDS. Click like and subscribe if you want to learn more about the genetic disorder that has affected my life, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, along with a lot more content. Just go check it out. Before I get started, no, your eyes do not deceive you. I have painted and did a little redecorating. I think it's the first time I've redone these particular walls in my house since my ex-wife and I painted them when we first bought the place years ago. I got tired of staring at those old dingy walls every time I edited one of these videos, so I had to make a change. The problem with doing all this moving, taping, then painting, then removing the tape, then moving everything back is that I have stressed out my wrists so much that I can barely use my hands. So this incident makes me want to talk about the most obvious symptom of hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, the symptom that the subtype of EDS gets its name, hypermobile joints. Human joints are complicated structures consisting of several types of tissue. Of course, you have the bones, the rigid structures that are being joined. In some joints, like in the ribs, there is cartilage involved. Moving joints have a sac of fluid called the bursa that cushions the bones, allowing them to slide across each other. Then there are the tendons, which connect the muscles to the bones. I was awake when I had to have my wrist rebuilt years ago. They gave me a drug to keep me calm, but it also limited the transfer of information from my short-term to long-term memory. So I don't remember the whole surgery. However, the drug wore off before the surgery was over, so I can tell you that the tendons that run along the back of your hand look like white bicycle cables. They also function much like bicycle cables. When you squeeze the handbrakes on your bike, they pull the cables, and the cables pull the brakes closed onto the wheels. When your muscles flex, they pull on your tendons, and your tendons attach to the bones and pull on them, like the bike cables. Finally, there are the ligaments. These are fibrous bundles of connective tissue that hold the bones in place. The ligaments stretch from like one bone in a joint to the other and pull them together. These structures have to be strong enough to keep the bones in place, but flexible enough to allow the joint to move. And that's the problem with having hEDS. The gene that codes for how the body produces collagen, the protein that makes up ligaments and tendons, is faulty, so the tendons and ligaments are not strong enough to do their jobs properly. Both of these types of tissue are just too stretchy. The too elastic tendons force the muscles to work harder, causing fatigue, as I discussed in my chronic fatigue video. When the ligaments are too stretchy, they don't keep the bones in place. There's more give in the joints, so they move too much in their normal direction of movement, or they move in directions they aren't designed to move. So the tendons being stretchy means that the muscles have a hard time helping to keep the joints stable. This leads to many complications. The most obvious are subluxations and dislocations, which are basically the same thing, but to different degrees. A dislocation is when a bone comes away from a joint, so the two bones don't move together anymore. For instance, a shoulder dislocation is when the arm bone, the humerus, pops out of the shoulder joint, and it can end up off to the side, it can end up behind your shoulder blade, or it could just dangle there. A subluxation is when the bone comes partway out, a baby dislocation. The bone is out of place, but it's still in the neighborhood where it's supposed to be. People with hEDS experience frequent subluxations and the occasional dislocation because our tendons and ligaments especially can't keep the bones in place. While dislocations and subluxations are painful and can limit your mobility and the ability to exercise or perform certain jobs, they are not the only consequence of having lax joints. The bones moving around and against each other cause joint stress, which leads to tendinitis and bursitis. Tendinitis is inflammation of the tendons, while bursitis is inflammation of the bursa. Both conditions cause pain, limit your mobility, and can limit your strength. That's what happened with my hands. I used them too much, and now it's painful to use them. In the long term, many people with hEDS develop osteoarthritis from the bones bumping up against each other and doing damage. Arthritis causes pain and stiffness in a joint, even if it is usually hypermobile. Nerves run through our joints, often through canals or tunnels. When your joints are hypermobile and moving in odd directions, those tunnels can collapse, leading to pinched nerves. The classic example is carpal tunnel syndrome, which affects the wrists, but plenty of other joint tunnels can become an issue, like the cubicle in the elbow. Pinched nerves cause pain where the nerve ends. So you can have a massive pain in your hand, but the damage could be in your elbow or even your shoulder. You'll be sore there too, but you'll feel a lot here. Stabilizing the joint that's pinching the nerve is the only way to achieve any relief. Often you can do this through physical therapy, but in some cases, you need surgery to fix the problem. In an ironic twist, loose joints can lead to muscle stiffness. When the tendons and ligaments in a joint are lax, your brain knows that. It senses it. So it sends signals to the muscles around the joint to contract and stiffen up to stabilize that joint. This is a great defensive response when you have a sprained ankle or something, But when many of your joints are permanently loose, it can lead to problems. With your muscles flexed all the time, they aren't as strong. They're stuck or trapped, so they don't have much more flex in them, so they're weaker. They can't move it more. Being in this constantly flexed state can cause the muscles to spasm frequently, a condition called dystonia, which I will discuss more in another video. Speaking of another video, the last video I did was on craniocervical instability. The mechanism I'm talking about here, loose ligaments and tendons causing the bones to move around too much, causes CCI. It's the same mechanism, like I said. But it's not just the vertebrae in the neck that can come loose. People with hEDS can have issues all the way down the spine, especially the lumbar spine, the bottom of the spine. Slipped discs, damaged vertebrae, misaligned vertebrae, they slip out of place. Curvature of the spine, well, a bad curvature of the spine, I guess, because it's supposed to be curved, but anyway. Finally, it's not just the movable joints that can become hypermobile. Some limited movement joints, such as the sacroiliac joints, can become loose because of hEDS. The SI joints are where the lower spine meets the hip bones. All your upper body weight rests on those joints whenever you're upright, sitting, standing, whatever. All of this pushes down on your pelvis. The thing is, those bones are not fused. They're very close together. They fit together, but they are separate structures. They have to be, otherwise you wouldn't be able to twist, bend forward, bend backward, or any motion that requires movement at the waist. So, how does your pelvis stay together? You guessed it, a whole lot of very strong ligaments. And when your ligaments are stretchy, your pelvis can become unstable, like mine is. With an unstable pelvis, you can't do certain exercises. Like you can't go running, or at least I can't. Before I knew I have hEDS, I pulled my sacrum out of place multiple times while trying to take up running. I wanted to run a full 5K, so I did a Couch to 5K training program. It did not turn out well. It's hard to run when your torso is pointing one direction and your hips are going another. Yeah. So your hands or feet, or more precisely your ankles and wrists, are also made up of limited movement joints. When the ligaments holding those structures are lax, you get ankles that are easily twisted and wrists susceptible to injury. That's not good, because when your ankles are weak, you fall a lot, and you catch yourself with hands that are easily hurt, thus having to have my wrist rebuilt. You need to understand that these potential injuries, the subluxations, dislocations, tendinitis, pinched nerves, misaligned vertebrae, and unstable structures are all a daily threat. You have to be careful. I have to be careful with the hEDS. Otherwise, I could put a joint out of place or pinch a nerve, twist my sacrum out of place. Once, I felt my lower back shift because of the acceleration of an elevator. I pushed the button for an upper floor. The elevator hit me with that familiar increase of gravity, and my back slid right out of place. And yes, it hurt like hell. Now, I ensure that my posture is impeccable before I press an elevator button. In my life, I have damaged my shoulder and is now prone to easy subluxation. It will just fall out of place sometimes. I have to be careful putting on a jacket. I have to have my right wrist rebuilt, so I have limited mobility in that hand, even more when it's on this. But that hasn't prevented me from subluxing or maybe even dislocating both thumbs at the CMC joint multiple times. I've hyperextended my left elbow and had lateral medial epicondylitis in both arms. That's stressing out the tendons in the forearm, usually from overuse, like tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. But when you have hEDS, it can happen with just use. No over about it. I have craniocervical syndrome, see my previous video, and lumbar spine issues, so I have to be careful handling heavy items. And as I said before, I've popped my sacrum out of place multiple times. My right leg has subluxated from the hip twice. Both knees sound like Rice Krispies because they pop so much. And I've strained an ACL and a MCL at different times. My ankles are prone to supination or turning outward. I've rolled my ankles on something as small as a pebble. Just walking along, step on a pebble, roll my ankle over. And of course, an easily dislocated temporomandibular joint. These are just the injuries I remembered off the top of my head while writing this video. I'm sure I can come up with more if I think about it. So, if you know someone who has hEDS or suspects they do, and they are constantly complaining about aches and pains in their joints or injuring one joint or another, please consider that they are dealing with something greatly affecting their life. Also, please consider this. Thanks for watching my channel. Please click like, share, and subscribe, and check out my other titles. Have a question for any show? Send it to questions@addisonsagenda.com. On my website, addisonsagenda.com, you can learn about booking me to speak at your event and much more. All money made from speaking, videos, or through a GoFundMe goes to help with the medical bills my kid and I have due to hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. The link to the GoFundMe is below, as is a link to the Ehlers-Danlos Society, where you can learn more about EDS. Thanks again for watching. Peace and long life.